Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Today we're covering the Studio Ghibli film, Princess Mononoke.
And this is another film classic by Hayao Miyazaki we've been wanting to see for a very long time. It shows an exiled prince who meets a human girl raised by four spirits.
Before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and notification abilities on future podcasts and all the pause video.
Absolutely. And it was very different from what I expected. I know I've seen a lot of posts and comments on Twitter about this movie, but I still didn't prepare me for what the movie actually was. It was really very good, very intense. It had the elements that Miyazaki's films normally have, but it went in a different direction than his other films normally do.
Right. This one had more of an edge to it where he's had movies where they've had about fantasy, some about war, where based in reality or fantasy, and then some based on environment. And usually those are the three main things in his films. This one sort of has a mix of all three. It's a more of an environmental message in here, with the theme of war, and then the fantasy are the spirits of the forest, and it's heavily into that because they have a lot of ones that you probably heard from Western shows like the yokai and wolf spirits and many others that you know from there, but this is kind of where I think a lot of people were first introduced these types of things with this film.
Definitely. And the look of it was slightly different than a lot of the other Ghibli films as well. It had a similar type of animation, but as you said, it was a darker movie. And to me, in the art work of the film, that was reflected. You didn't have the lighter colors or vibrant colors, or like you have in Kiki's Delivery Service, where she's got a lightness and airiness to the animation. Here, there was a heaviness to the animation and more muted colors, and it definitely stands out amongst the rest of his work. And you wouldn't think that, but it absolutely does.
Right. And one of the biggest things in here that you can tell was inspiration was a lot of Avatar The Last Airbender, especially with season 1. And people have begun to see it at the time when it had its anniversary recently. And they were realizing, wait a minute, this is something from Avatar. And it looked like they based the end of the first season off of this entire film, because they have this giant deer spirit supposed to be like a guardian of the forest, and the villains want to kill it because both sides think the other is damaging the forest and hurting the ones in it. The animal ones want to kill the humans because of the pollution and the machines and everything, and then the humans want to kill the animals because of them getting all the humans. So it kind of went both ways. They were both kind of like at odds at the same time. And in one of the forms for the spirit becomes this giant fish-like blue spirit that walks. And immediately we're thinking of
Legend of Korra.
And The Last Airbender. It was like, wait a minute, this is what Aang turned into at the end of the first season. So you could tell what they had watched and were influenced by.
So really, Avatar, as you said, for how it looked almost exactly the same.
Right.
But also in Legend of Korra, when she went in the second season.
Right.
And they were talking about Avatar 1 and how she was having the battle between, is it Va?
Yeah.
And
Batu,
yeah, Batu, thank you. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, that was like probably one of the biggest things for us that we found out in here. Second would be the amount of stars they had in here. And up until recently, Ghibli would always have these big celebrities do the English dub for the movies. The last three, they kind of cut it down to 3, and they're not even American. But for here,
and in his son's movies, he just only used Brits.
Right, or Irishmen, and it's like, wow, it was really different. So for here, there was quite a few stars that Mom was definitely familiar with, like Billy Bob Thornton.
Yes.
They had Tara Strong in here, surprisingly.
Yes, definitely.
Billy Crudup, is that how you pronounce his last name?
Yeah, that one really surprised me because I know him from quite a few of the movies he used to be in. He's a really great actor, so actually hearing him and then finding out, that sounds like him. Is it really him? Yes, it's really him.
Yeah.
That was a surprise.
We had like a mini driver.
Yes.
We had John DiMaggio, Debbie Derryberry, so some other well-known voice actors.
Jada Pinkett Smith.
And Keith David, and we were just like, what the heck?
Yeah.
All these people were like, what? They're all in anime movies?
And this is the only movie we have watched to date that has this many stars in it, as you mentioned.
Right.
I think the second closest was actually Ariadne.
I think so,
I think
yeah.
that was the same. But most of them were actually in that one Disney stars, and then they had a big star, Carol Burnett.
Right.
So I think that's the closest.
Right. And as you said, this was very different than what we expected. I kind of knew there was going to be the action and the violence in it, just not know how much it was, because they would have a certain scene in there that became a meme that people like to recreate or redraw with different characters that was supposed to be a rather ship moment, which is ironic because the ship kind of didn't really happen in the movie itself.
And you kept waiting for it, and you kept wanting it.
Yeah, it was like, oh, it, like you said, ended differently than the other films. So for here, it was more heavy set into the fantasy violence and the war theme. So unfortunately, if you're not really into that, the movie does have a lot of that in there. From the start, it has them fighting the evil spirits. And then when it gets further in, it has them fighting humans, and they use guns or arrows and things. And they have such precision in here that the arm can come off. So that's like the only thing that kind of shocked us, because we're not really too into that. So that's the thing you gotta be cautious of when you watch the film.
And another thing that was quite shocking in here is we've seen Nausicaa, and you kind of seen elements of this in there. But in this one, in Nausicaa, they were harming the nature, and the nature was rebelling. And here, the humans got really violent with the spirits and actually was trying to capture and kill them. And we're like, what the heck?
Right, and they kept telling, like, if you do that, that's the end of all
And they didn't
the
care.
birth. Yeah,
They
it's
didn't
like,
care.
you're not going to have planes, you're not going to have food, you're not going to have oxygen, you're going to have nothing if you take it out. Like, maybe this is a prequel. You begin to think, is this a prequel on Nausicaa? This is what happened.
Yeah, they didn't care. He wanted to capture it. He wanted to capture, was it the head?
Yeah, it was the head of the deer spirit. It was him and another woman. It was like, good grief, you people need to quit.
So that was really different for a Miyazaki movie as well.
And they still have the mostly happy ending. You kind of have to decide how you feel on how it gets to the ending. Like you can tell that the land is still safe, but how it gets there, you kind of decide, are you okay with that, or could you like take it or leave it? Because it kind of leaves it still up in the air on what's going to happen after. Like, you don't know what happens to the characters afterwards, after everything is settled, where they go. Do they get along with spirits now or with each other, because there was a whole lot of fighting, and you're really not sure where that goes, so you kind of have to like decide for yourself after seeing it.
Definitely. And the length was kind of short too.
Yeah, it wasn't even 90 minutes. It was actually a little less than 90 minutes. And even when we had to pause, like to take a restroom break or get something to eat or something, it doesn't feel like you're watching a shorter film. Like, the shortest film we've seen so far from Ghibli, I think is either The Cat Returns. Okay, I thought it was Earwig and the Witch, but yeah, Cat Returns I think was shorter. It was like barely an hour.
Sorry.
It was probably close to an hour if it even made it to then. So that does show that it's still an engaging film. It's just that, we kind of feel like there are times when people can tell great stories, but they don't have to have a ton of violence and blood and things. And there have been stories done in the past where it's like, people are gone, they got shot, things happen, but you didn't have to see the fluids and things come out and the really extremities of it when it happens. And while this is actually a pretty good movie and it really does have some deep messages in it, I think that's pretty much the only thing we really kind of didn't care for, is that it kind of went too much into that as it went along. But we get the point.
Yes, but that was important for him in the telling of the way he wanted the story to be told. So I understand why.
Right.
I just know that he's done it before without it, but for this particular movie, he seems to have felt that it was impertinent for him to display that.
Right.
And I do believe that, as I mentioned with the fools trying to get the head of that spirit,
right,
he wanted to really convey just how far they would go and how depraved, depraved, and how cruel man could be.
Right.
And sometimes, even when things are not, even when things are not attacking them and not being violent, that they can just get wrapped up in their own concerns and their own goals, what they wanted to achieve, and he didn't care about the life of that spirit or what the consequences would be. He just wanted, like you said, he and she wanted it. And for one brief moment, I thought of Team Rocket, season 14, when they went evil.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And that's the other thing. One more thing we gotta point out that you mentioned with the animals. They did a really good job on designing all of the spirits and the animals, because most of them take animal form, and they don't mouth human words, like the mouth moves up and down, but they speak. And I think that was in Japanese too, but it was supposed to be they're anthropomorphic, like they're just kind of there and you hear the voices. So they try to make it look still realistic, because they didn't make them more anime looking or fancy looking. They made them look realistic, and then just have maybe the blobs or something that represented maybe the hate or the good in the animals or in the surrounding area. And even when they had the prince's they had a deer that he rode on instead of a horse, we did something different. And one of the things he thought was funny is that it acted more like a dog in certain scenes, because they would have some really hilarious lines in the beginning of the movie, especially with Jenna Pinkett Smith. And there was one point in there the deer got hurt, and they said, "Okay, you go over there, you need to rest." And he walks over a bridge or something, and then it starts following him and said, "No, I said rest." And then he keeps following him. I said go and rest. And then he continues dang it. And he just takes it with him. It's it's wounded and it's still trying to follow him. It's not listening.
And then the women were having their discussions about the men.
Right. And it was just for fun.
It was hilarious.
And the lines were just hilarious. You couldn't help but just burst out laughing, things they would say about them or each other, how handsome the prince was.
Right.
He's I should have put my makeup on.
So it did have the levity that you needed in it to keep it from being too dark and too heavy. Absolutely.
Right.
So if you've seen Princess Mononoke, and you probably have, let us know what you think in the comments below. Did you love it, like it, hate it? We really want to hear what you think. And did you see it long ago or recently?
Yeah, you should do it in the theaters or something, because that'd be pretty cool if you did.
And were you surprised by the voice cast as we were? We really want to hear what you have to think. If you haven't seen it, you will probably have to purchase it, because it's not unless you're out of the U.S. and then you can see it on Netflix.
Right.
And probably Disney too. But if you're in the U.S., you're going to have to buy it, or you're going to have to get it from your local library.
Right. And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates and with anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you. We appreciate your subscribing. And if you want us to give your channel, check out your channel, I should say. Let us know the name of your channel in the comments below, or leave a link and we will check it out, give you a follow, and check out some of your content as well.
Yes. So, thank you so much for watching. Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.